Welcome back, bros, to another episode of the Broest Bros You Know. I'm your host, Viet, reminding you that everybody's a little bit racist sometimes, but it doesn't mean we go around committing hate crimes. We have a most excellent episode for you guys today. We're going to talk a little McGregor versus Mayweather, and then we're going to get right into it. UFC 209, this card is stacked. At the very top of the card, we have two title matches, the first of which is a very exciting matchup in the lightweight division. Tony Ferguson takes on Khabib Nurmagomedov, and then we have the welterweight title fight between Tyron Woodley and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. They're running this one back. The last fight was a draw, and we're all so excited to see what happens. And I'm joined by two of the best fight analysts in the game. They're not blocked by Khabib yet, but they are working on it. We got David BC Bridges. What's up, Dave?
What's up, Viet? I hope to one day have game like Robin Black.
Yeah, well, all you have to do is compliment him, and he'll block us. And then we also have grappling expert Matt Two Stripe Alexander. What's up, Matt?
Not much. I just wanted to say that I chose against Khabib, and I'm just glad his dad won't be here to talk against me.
Matt, you're coming in a little light.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
I don't know if the mic is on. It doesn't sound like that mic is on. Like, tap it?
Damn it. It's off. Are you fucking shitting me? I mean,
I'm sorry, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Bear with us one moment.
So Viet, please don't cut this. Please leave this in the podcast.
God damn it.
And they call me BC.
Wait, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, is this really... You can actually hear me.
Yes.
Volume's fine.
I can hear you
There's
now,
like
but I don't
noise.
think it's the mic. I don't think your mic is feeding. Like, tap your mic.
Yeah, it's not...
Okay.
It's definitely not. Okay, so go into tools, options, and then go under sound. Make sure that the mic set is, or audio settings, my bad. And make sure that your microphone is set to the mic that's plugged in and not the built-in mic on your computer.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh gosh.
Perfect.
Dude,
Perfect.
wow, this
Leave
is
it.
the best ever.
Leave it.
Do
Just
not change a damn thing.
I'm not moving.
All right, guys. We are back with new improved sound from Matt Two Stripe Alexander. All right, guys. The first thing we're going to talk about, your favorite subject. The potential mega fight between Conor McGregor and Floyd Money Mayweather. Now, our fans out there, and I know you guys are plentiful, you guys didn't hear us. We actually talked about this before on the lost UFC 208 breakdown that we did. I just was not able to get that out in time. We talked about this for that breakdown. We just brought it up momentarily. It's not like a lot has happened since then, but at least it does sound like there's been confirmations from other parties that things are in principle trending towards a fight happening. Now, of course, the biggest obstacle that we talked about last time still in the way. Conor McGregor is still under contract by the UFC. I asked you guys last time what percentage did you guys put on it. David, you gave me 25. Matt, you gave an optimistic 12%. Does that change for you guys at all with the recent news?
So I will go first here. You can't prove I said 25% because, as you said, that episode was lost.
But I still have the recording. I can actually play it.
Oh, damn it. No, actually, to be completely honest, my expectation of that fight happening has skyrocketed, honestly. I would put it at least 50% at this point. I mean, everything seems to be trending in the direction of Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather. Earlier this week, Artem Lobov was on Ariel Helwani's show, and Ariel asked Artem, "Hey, is this fight happening? Are you training him for Floyd?" And he was very, very, very cagey, like cagey to the point where it was almost a yes. So I think this fight's definitely trending in the direction of happening. But like you said, there's still the biggest issue of the contract status with the UFC.
Yeah, what's really telling is before it almost seemed like Mayweather would kind of blow it off, and the way he's talking now, it almost sounds like he's negotiating. You know, like, oh, we got the money on the table. He needs to agree to it. So we used to talk about the Pacquiao Mayweather fight, and that was never going to happen. And a bunch of people were like, that's never going to happen. Well, when you make Mayweather money, and that kind of money is at stake, fights tend to happen. And McGregor Mayweather would be one of the biggest fights in combat sports history. So,
and to that point, Mayweather is going on the talk shows and etc. talking up Conor McGregor and talking up Conor's boxing talent.
And that never happened before.
Exactly. So you think that the fact that he's doing that means there's something here. There's something tangible here.
Yeah, you always figured Mayweather, when he retired, he wasn't actually retired. And then, I mean, like I said, there's little hints here and there. The Money Mayweather team has they went ahead and put in the site for 50-0. They already have the trademark for 50-0. So it looks like things are kind of trending that way. Now, Matt, I remember you were even more skeptical than David at the time. Does anything that's happened recently, these other people speaking up saying, oh, there's definitely a lot of smoke, does that convince you in any way, or is it still, look, man, Conor's under contract, you can't just switch sports?
It's still at about 4.7% right now.
Wait, you went down. You were at 12.
No, I said 12 was the higher end of it. I was as low as 3%, but I said after this chain of events, reevaluating, and we say that it's bumped up to 4.7% chance of happening. Until Conor says that it's going to happen, and then it goes up to like 80%.
I think he's already said it's going to happen. Like yeah. he went over and did like that special over in Britain. We know that there were the rumors of him going over to do the anti-bullying campaign in Vegas. Now, of course, they were saying he was there to talk with Mayweather. They may or may not have met. Like, Mayweather is all over the place there, so it could have been they were in the same place. But he was already supposed to be in Vegas because this was part of his punishment for throwing the water bottle, so he had to film the anti-bullying thing. So he was already supposed to be there anyways. It wasn't like Conor was making a special trip to Vegas to do anything. But again, it's just where there's smoke, there's fire, and it just seems like there's a lot of hints pointing that way. I said I was 50% last time. What'd you say, Matt? 4.3?
4.7.
4.7, gosh, like 4.7. So I was at 50% last time. I'm going to be 54.7%. So that's how confident I am. Just so you know, Matt, Luke Thomas, promotional malpractice fame,
is a donk.
He's a donk. He's on your side. He definitely thinks that this fight has zero chance of happening. So you do have that going for you, Matt. Now, let's get to UFC 209, or as the tagline says, definitely not UFC 208. This fight card looks amazing. There are so many. If you just had, you can take your pick of either co-main event fights and sprinkle in some of the undercard fights from this card, and that would be better than the UFC 208 pay-per-view.
I didn't realize Rattling the Cage already happened.
Oh. I told you, we got the hottest takes and the lowest thermal energy.
Now, I guess we should do a little catch-up because we've missed a couple fights here with Broest Bros. We try to cover every single fight. Now, just due to scheduling, we were not able to get out the last few. But we did have a pretty telling fight in the heavyweight division with my new favorite fighter, Derek Lewis, versus Travis Brown. Just an incredible, incredible finish. And Derek Lewis really solidified himself as one of the top guys in that division. What are your thoughts on Derek Lewis's performance, Matt?
I was more impressed by Mario, if he dies, Yamasaki. Nearly letting Travis Brown get killed. That
dude can. Derek Lewis can control his BMs, man. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, that was the thing I was gonna say. He looked super well controlled in there. Both, not crapping all over the floor, and also when he finally got Travis Brown hurt, he looked like he was picking his shots pretty cleanly and breaking through Travis's guard with uppercuts. And just watching him from like a year ago, that's not something that you would have seen. He was he usually doesn't have that level of self-control, and that's like that takes a lot of training to, you know, have the right level of killer instinct and amount of aggression and know how to finish somebody, because that's I could see other fighters or even Derek of a year ago in that situation, maybe punching himself out and like swinging for the fences. And I think he used a lot of his kicks in the first round to kind of create distance and confusion. Like, it doesn't look like a wheel kick or his jumping switch kick was going to land, but it did definitely back Travis off. It's just interesting to see his strategy and all like the little things that he's getting better at, because everybody knew from seeing him that he's got crazy power, but it's a lot of fun to watch. And his next matchup, if he does in fact get put up against Francis Ngannou, that should be really exciting too.
An exciting fight between two of the scariest guys in the division. Derek Lewis, his interviews, they are some of the most candid and hilarious takes. He's so refreshing. The guy is such a character. They were like, you know, it looked like he was really effective. Travis Brown was really effective with the kicks to your body in the first round. What adjustments did you make over there in between rounds? And he was like, you know, I let out a little fart, just relieved a little bit of pressure. I just knew if I pooped my pants, I'd be put on a meme. Which is true. I mean, a UFC guy crapping his pants, especially a large guy like Derek Lewis, that would have been hilarious. It's like, dude, you can't eat Taco Bell right before a fight. That's not a pregame meal. That's your reward. But congratulations to him. One of my favorite fighters, one of the most exciting guys in the division. If he gets Francis Ngannou, man, that's a hell of a fight. The other big fight, the UFC 208, the Forgotten card, it did feature a title fight, brand spanking new division, 145 ladies division, a fight between Geraint Durandamy and Holly Holm. GDR put on a really good fight, but the thing is, her performance will be overshadowed by the two late shots that she landed, one of which, the one that she hit Holly Holm with at the end of the second round, may have been one of the most devastating shots in the entire fight. And that looked like that rocked Holly. She kind of like stumbled a little bit. It's kind of sad that, and unfortunate that happened. I don't think that she is a dirty fighter. I do think that a point should have been deducted, but that division is such a mess because Holly Holm is one of the best female fighters on the roster, is now on a 3-fight losing streak. And then you have the new champion who is immediately going to go and take off to have, I believe, hand surgery?
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I think that fight that she was referencing happened 2 years ago. So I feel like there was plenty of time for her to maybe take care of that before. It kind of sounded a little bit like, wait, the next fight is against Justino? Yeah, you know, just surgeries. I need surgeries left and right. We'll see. Will they immediately have an interim match for Justino in a new division? It seems like Cyborg's division, so it's whenever she fights, that's going to be hers, and then it'll be up to the UFC to fill out the roster.
So on the prospects of that division, the 145 women's division, my prediction is that Durandamy goes off and gets her surgery. In the meantime, the UFC pits Cyborg against Megan Anderson for yet another interim title.
Yeah, they love those interim titles. Immediately create a new division. I think it would have been funny if like the first fight was for an interim belt. Well, get excited, guys. UFC 209 is
UFC 213. Cyborg versus Megan Anderson.
Megan.
I think I told you guys before this podcast that I was going to flip this one on its head, but I've decided, nope, we're just going to start from the ground up. Let's start with the first fight on the main card. We got Alistair Overeem, Mark Hunt. Who do you like here, Matt?
Alistair Overeem. He's hard to hit, at good range, and he has more paths to more bros. He rolls deep.
Dave, who do you got in this fight?
I agree with Matt. I'm going with Alistair Overeem in this one. And his bro is the fact that Mark Hunt only loses to guys who use steroids. We all know
horse meat
history there.
Horse meat, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Mark Hunt, this is an interesting fight because this is the first time in UFC history that they have a guy that's under their employ that is currently suing them. And they are booking him for a fight. Now, of course, Mark Hunt is suing the UFC and Brock Lesnar for the UFC 200 card where Brock was, as you guys were alluding to, pinged for PEDs. And now he is booked to fight Alistair Overeem, a guy that has had a history of using PEDs, so that's funny. It's going to be really interesting. I haven't really heard much from Mark Hunt. I don't know if the UFC wants us to hear much from Mark Hunt, to be honest. I wonder if, like, every single time they have, like, something where, like, whenever he speaks, they just, like, censor everything out. But it is really interesting that he is on the card. I mean, they're essentially paying him so that he can pay his lawyer to sue them. So that's funny. But you know what? I'm gonna go with Mark Hunt because it's a heavyweight fight, and honestly, guys, that's a pick'em. I don't see this one going past the second round, though. But just a concussion to either one of them just seems really... it's just really miserable being a veteran heavyweight. Having to go through some of those wars and take those hits. Overeem coming off a pretty bad beatdown.
Actually, speaking of Overeem's last beatdown, I just looked up his record because I want to see like what round he stopped his previous wins in. But his, completely one-sided beatdown loss to Stipe was fight of the night.
Yeah.
Not performance of the night. It was fight.
He had a couple. Now in replays, he had that kick that sort of knocked or did knock Stipe over. Now in replays, it looked more like Stipe was also slipping, so it wasn't like he got knocked over. But there was a lot for the crowd to be excited about. It looked like Overeem was getting his. I think if I remember correctly, I picked Overeem there more of like that was a good betting pick. I liked his odds of being able to get something. His striking, as you mentioned, Matt, incredible. He has a lot of tools to work with. I just don't know what he has left. That was pretty bad. I mean, that was just embarrassing. Joe Rogan made it seem like he didn't like asking people questions after they have concussions, but it really did look like he was salting the wounds. He's like, okay, let's look at this again in slow-mo replay just so that I can really show you how wrong you are and how Stipe absolutely did not tap. That was just, that was brutal. Moving on. This is one of your favorite up-and-coming fighters, David. Lando.
Yes, it is.
Venata, versus one of Matt's favorite up-and-coming fighters, the Swedish David Timur. We're going to start with David. What do you like about Venata, and how do you see this fight going?
So first, I find it entertaining that Matt gets David, and David does not. But so Lando, I mean, like, if anyone watched UFC 206, and if y'all missed that card, sucks for you because that was one of the better cards in the history of the UFC. Lando Venata can throw leather. Not just leather, he can throw his feet as well. The guy is a crazy good striker. Flashy striker, but a flashy striker with very good precision and some power, as Tony Ferguson will tell you. Granted, he is a little green. I mean, this is only his third fight in the UFC, but the guy trains in a great camp, and he's already fought in Tony Ferguson, and he gave it to Ferguson. He just, completely brought it for at least one full round against Tony Ferguson, who's now fighting for the interim belt in the 155 division. So there's a lot to like about Lando. He still has some growing to do, but a bright future for this guy in this division.
Now, I do want to apologize to Matt. I'm looking again. You actually did pick Lando to win this fight by knockout.
Yeah.
I apologize. But go ahead. You can just piggyback off of what David just said. What do you like about Venata, and how do you see this fight going?
I see it going like a lot of, not the Tony Ferguson fight, but the rest of Venata's fights. He's very tricky for his opponents to get a feel for on his movement, and he's very good at striking entries from many different angles. And I think working at Jackson Winklejohn has just like really improved his confidence to just basically strike with anybody. I saw a couple of his legacy fights, and that was a little different because, you know, he was already just this guy's going to be a top 5 guy like within the next 2 years, I think. And it's a bit of a mismatch sometimes. The guy he's fighting from Norway is pretty good. Had like some good fights. Yes, sorry. God, they're all white countries. I don't. Oh. But yeah, he was on Tough. He had some like good stuff, but I don't know. I just don't think he's at the same level, or at least hasn't proven himself at the same level that Lando has. Because Lando's like looked amazing in all of his fights, even in his loss to Tony Ferguson. That was on short notice, and he's fighting Tony freaking Ferguson. So I don't know. I just expect a lot of good things from him, and it's hard to bet against him at this point.
And no disrespect to Meryl Streep, but Lando Venata is
an artist.
He is an artist, a true artist. I'm with you guys as far as in the Lando Venata fan club. A huge fan of this guy. It's hard not to love the flashy stuff, but he also has some great technique behind it. It's not just like flash and that's it. You see Anthony Pettis, and sometimes he'll just kind of throw a one-off flashy move. There were times when he would mix it up into some combinations.
Derek Lewis.
Yeah, you're right, Derek Lewis.
Woo!
Man, love that man.
I love Derek Lewis, but some of those,
yeah. It was
jumping, spinning, switch kick.
Dude, come on. It's scary that a man that size could even attempt something like that.
Also true.
Since you guys have talked a lot about Venata, and they're both fairly new to the UFC, so they're green by UFC standards. There's something to like about David too. Very different, maybe not as flashy as Lando is, but a very technical striker. Has really high accuracy, and he's got great defense. He doesn't take a lot of shots. Now, Lando is a guy. The reason why he's got skills. I think the reason why he's going to be a fan favorite, if he's not already, really fast, is just his willingness to eat one, to throw one. And he's just the ultimate that guy. But because of that, he does absorb a lot of power shots. That's just his style. When he's against a high level guy like Ferguson, and that's about as high as you can possibly get, that's going to get you into trouble. I don't think David is going to be on that level, but David's going to be able to pose some problems, and he's not going to be as wild and as reckless. So there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for Lando to maybe connect on some of the more flashy stuff. So just to be contrarian, I'm going to go David here. The next fight, we were supposed to have Rashad Evans' middleweight debut a few cards earlier on the New York card, but due to some complications, that would have been fine in Vegas because I don't know whatever issues he's had then. I don't know if there's anything different now, but he could not pass in New York. But he has cleared the fight here in Vegas. We got a fight between Rashad Evans and Daniel Kelly. We got David is going for Rashad Evans. We got Matt Alexander picking the Australian Daniel Kelly. I'm going to start with you, Matt. What do you like about Kelly?
Sweet up-and-comer, is not afraid of anything.
I love that you consider Daniel Kelly an up-and-comer.
It's like 40, dude.
Like, he's only had 13 fights, though. And
yeah,
he's
because
only
he started
lost
at like
one
38.
of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he's fresh, bro.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Matt.
But, yeah, I mean, his opponent is like 90 in fight years. Sorry, Rashad. But, yeah, I actually think Rashad's, I don't know how if he can take a punch like he used to. This guy has pretty good striking, and he's got ridiculously good grappling, and I could see him getting into trouble, getting taken down and kind of outworked, even though he's facing somebody older, and also taking a lot of ground and pound damage too. And I'm not sure how Rashad's going to hold up to that. And hopefully he'll look better, because he's dropping down to middleweight. He should look good, but I don't know. Some people are saying that it's time for Rashad to retire. It's always hard to tell unless you're close to a fighter and in their fight camp. So that's kind of up in the air. But sorry, Rashad, picking against you.
Yeah, he was always such a beast athlete. I think he came into the UFC at a time when you didn't have athletes like him making it to the UFC. So he competed at heavyweight initially. Now clearly he would be small for a heavyweight division. He was small for the light heavyweight division. I always wanted him to move down to middleweight. I think this may be a little late. It would be nice to see a springy Rashad Evans, and maybe we will. Daniel Kelly, we were just talking about this before the show. David, another one of those Team Australia alums from that Australia versus Canada UFC that no one talks about it, no one knows about it. I'm pretty sure Dave and I may have been the only two people to watch the entire season. But man, you guys missed the that was the Elias show. And if you're not following Elias the Spartan Theodora on Twitter,
he's the man.
Need to. That guy is hilarious. He can quit right now and switch over straight to media. I think he'd have it like they'd sign him up immediately. First of all, he's a model. He's got the looks, extremely funny. Oh, and he's also a decent fighter. David, you're picking Rashad Evans here against the Grizzly, Daniel Kelly. What do you like about Rashad Evans here?
So in this fight, I agree with a lot of what Matt just said. Rashad has not shown much in his last several fights. It looks like his career might be over. But that being said, I do believe he is the more talented fighter in this fight. I like Daniel Kelly a lot, but I feel like Rashad has more paths to victory. Granted, he hasn't shown much in his last few fights, so it is kind of a toss-up that way. But he just overall, I believe, the more well-rounded fighter in this one, and I think 185 will be a good should be a good weight class for him. And like you said, I feel like he should have gotten here earlier and not, now.
I respect your take. I'm going to push you a little bit. You said he has more paths to victory. What are those paths? What do you see him needing to do against a former judoka Olympian in Daniel Kelly?
So Daniel Kelly, like you said, judoka Olympian. His striking is okay, to be perfectly blunt. I believe that Evans has a much better striking game, and I also believe that Evans has a much better top game. So if Evans ends up on top on the ground, that's Evans' spot, and if the fight stays standing, that's Evans' spot. I believe Kelly's only path to victory is basically in the clinch. So I guess that's what I mean by saying Evans has more paths to victory.
And it should also be noted, Rashad Evans will have a significant reach advantage, a 5-inch reach advantage. Daniel Kelly, a little bit of a T-Rex arm guy. He's tall, but he's got shorter reach. But he's not called the Grizzly for no reason. He's tough. And I got to agree with Matt. Rashad Evans has not looked good lately. I think if I just had to pick this one, who I think I see winning, it's hard to pick against Rashad Evans. He just has more talent. He has the credentials. There was a time in his career where him fighting Daniel Kelly would have been such a blowout. It would have never made sense to book the two in a fight. But this is where he is in his career now, and man, maybe he could be shot. Maybe this could be the fight. Daniel Kelly goes out there, puts him away, and maybe that's it for Rashad Evans. So we'll have to see. But I think I'm picking Evans here. But if I'm a betting man, just because Evans is favored and he has the name, I don't mind going Daniel Kelly if you're gonna have to do a pick 'em for betting. There's a lot to like about him. He's tough. He can take a punch, and with that judoka, Evans, he's got that wrestling background. He's going to want to go down, and with the way judo, they do a hip toss, they're perfectly okay playing that overhook game. So, and Daniel Kelly, he's really good once you get you into the clinch, and if he can get Rashad Evans on the ground and pound him, I just don't know how much more of a beating he can take. But I would say, but should be an exciting fight, but I actually don't know. It could be a really bad fight, guys. Yeah. I really don't know. These are two guys that are on the downside of their career. Even though Daniel Kelly doesn't have as many fights, he is a little bit older. I can't imagine that he's going to be fighting for too much longer. Get hyped. Get hyped. We're about to get a pair of these main event fights. These are incredible fights. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. Khabib says that this is gonna be the best lightweight fight in mixed martial arts history, and who am I to disagree with the Eagle? David, you are picking Khabib in this fight. What do you like about Khabib?
All right, so I am picking Khabib in this fight, and there's honestly, I mean, he might block me on Twitter for this, but there was one thing to like about Khabib for this fight. And that is he's arguably the best fighter on the UFC roster when it comes to controlling his opponents on the ground.
I'm sorry. We have a flash alert. I'm checking on Twitter right now, and David Bridges' Twitter account has just been blocked by Khabib. He has made it. Congratulations, David.
You've arrived.
You've arrived.
What? I retired. Drop the mic. I'm out. But honestly, for real though, I mean, Khabib does an excellent job in ways that allows him to get his own offense off while still maintaining control. I mean, you see the guy fight, and he'll be holding his opponent's wrist with one hand, and then he'll transfer over and block that arm down with his knee so he can get some shots off. And like when Khabib is on top of you, you're down there and you're going to take shots, and he's the best at it on the UFC roster, I believe.
There's nothing about his game that reminds me of Matt Hughes, but just the way people talk about him, where they look like they're athletic guys, but everyone that spars against them, like, oh my gosh, that guy is strong like a bear. That's incredible. Matt Hughes, like the guy was country strong. Everyone said that it wasn't so much that he could bench press more than you, but man, if that guy was on top of you, you just weren't moving him. He was so strong. Khabib is exactly like that. Just does a really good job of making himself very heavy. Just doesn't give you a lot of space. He just smothers you once he gets on top. Matt, you're picking Tony Ferguson. What do you like about El Cucuy?
He's on a huge win streak. He's got a good sense of humor on Twitter, and has nasty cauliflower ear. Also, he can. One thing I noticed about his fighting from range, and also basically how he matches up in this one. He's naturally just pretty awesome, but one of his paths to victory against Khabib is Khabib does take some shots from boxing range and trying to enter in, and Tony Ferguson is really good at keeping the distance while backing up and using his kicks to keep distance, and then entering back into range and throwing things. One of the things I noticed is in boxing range, when people are coming in and out of the clinch, he'll move his shoulders. It's very deceptive, like Robin Black talked about that. I saw the angles that he's throwing, like uppercuts and hooks at, his fist is not traveling a great distance, not like a traditional boxing uppercut where you're like throwing full, turning your whole shoulders, but he still has like a good deal of power in there. And this fight was kind of a pickup for me, because I know
Khabib could easily submit him because he's freaking Khabib. So, but I think it's going to come down to how much damage Khabib takes trying to get him to the ground, and El Cucuy is good enough backing up and also from short range to make his shots count to kind of wear Khabib down early on, and then he can kind of take over the fight after that, or possibly finish him early.
Yeah, Tony Ferguson, this guy is an athlete. All-American wrestler, played a bunch of different sports in high school, was a track star. This guy's a baller, and more important than him being an athlete, he's been a winner. He's been a winner at basically everything that he's done and he's competed at. Ironically, the last loss on his record was to the man that Khabib just beat to earn this interim title shot, Michael Johnson. But to say that Tony has improved since then would be an understatement. The guy seems to be getting better every single fight, culminating in a superb performance that he put on against RDA. And then we were just talking about the fight that he had with Venata too, and as impressive as that was, that a guy that just comes into the UFC, filling in last second against a high-level guy like Ferguson, that was props to Venata for being that game, but that also shows you the kind of heart that Ferguson has. I mean, that guy got walloped, he was rocked, he kept his composure, kept cool, figured out a way to land that Bravo choke, and man, once he gets you there, it's like over. It's like over.
Yeah.
He's really good at it. There's a couple things that I want to bring up here that are potential weapons that I feel Tony Ferguson has. He likes to bring this up a lot, Snap Down City. He always says Snap Down City. Matt, explain Snap Down City for our listeners out there.
That's what happens when you're like me and you have really bad posture. When you go into clinch on somebody, they'll grab behind your head. You can do it from a tie clinch or from like a regular collar tie from wrestling, and you just kind of yank their head forward and their arm forward, and you pull somebody's weight forward and their head down. Their lead foot is just going to stamp forward to keep them from falling on their face, but then your back is going to go flat, and it's a great way to get set up for either spinning around and taking someone's back if you're in like a turtle, like on the ground, or if you're from a full standing position, it's a great way to snap someone down and get a guillotine, or in Tony's case, a Darce choke. Because most people, when you get snapped down, you're like, oh, I don't want to fall on my face. I'm going to put my arms out or put my hands on the ground to try to keep my positioning. Because people also don't want to get kneed from the clinch. So you get snapped down, your posture moves forward, and then all of a sudden you're getting choked with your own shoulder.
This snap down mentality, snap down city, as he puts it. What's so important about this is that it is a very effective counter grappling measure, especially against a high level grappler like Khabib, guys that want to go in on those singles and doubles. It's a great way to control your posture, and he doesn't necessarily have to go down and go for the submission, but it is a way for him to control his opponent, and he could release it and then just go back into that striking range. But it's a great way to negate some of that pressure. It could, he could use it offensively. As we'll get into this in a little bit. And Tony Ferguson is really good at taking moments when most guys have to react defensively, and he throws off offense. Some of the things that he just naturally does, the snap down, the Granby roll. It's a great way to get out when somebody is trying to take your back. These are things that Khabib is supremely good at, and this is, I think, the first guy that he's going to be fighting against that has extremely high-level counter-grappling moves that he can use to maybe negate some of Khabib's grappling abilities. Now, make no mistake about it, I think in a vacuum, Khabib's grappling going into this fight, it's like if this was the UFC rating, then Khabib's would be like the rare 100. But Ferguson would be like, in the 90s somewhere. He's really good there too, but what's really impressive for me with Tony is just his ability to counter grapple and not get sucked into someone's game. Ferguson is elite everywhere. He's really good on his feet. He's really good on the ground. He's great at his submission game. And that makes him scary in all facets of the fight, whereas you have a guy like Khabib who's really only elite in one. So this is my question for you, David. what does Khabib need to do to be able to close that distance? He's going to be giving up a significant reach advantage to Tony Ferguson, and Tony Ferguson may be probably one of the best on the roster at sticking you at the end of the punches. He makes himself, just to put this into perspective, but the guy has the same height and reach as a Rory McDonald. He's really big for the 155 weight division. Now, obviously, he's not as built as a Rory is, but he carries his weight well, very athletic, very fast, and he makes himself very long. What does Khabib need to do to be able to break that distance?
So, luckily for Khabib, his striking game is built around getting into clinch range. The guy, he basically bull rushes you to jump into that range. I mean, as we saw against the last fight against Michael Johnson, Johnson has reach on him. So, I mean, clearly Khabib can get tagged because Johnson tagged Khabib several times in that first round. But Khabib was able to get into that clinch range. And once in that range, I mean, he doesn't just have the normal shots to bring you to the ground. I mean, he has so many different trips he can use. He really is a master at, like, I guess, as I said before, on the ground, he's arguably the best in the UFC in terms of controlling and putting on damage. But in the clinch, I mean, he knows how to get the fight to the ground. I mean, he has multiple ways to get the fight to the ground once he's in that range. And that swarming attack that he throws is very effective, even against guys with long reaches.
I'm sorry, Dave. I missed the last thing that you just said.
Oh, sorry. I said that his swarming attack on his feet is very effective at getting in takedown range or trip range against fighters who have a longer reach than he has.
Yeah, Khabib's striking, unorthodox, I guess, is one way you can put it. The strikes he throws, you just won't really see anybody throw strikes like him. And the thing is, it's like, he hasn't lost, so it's obviously working. It works for him. I would not recommend young fighters go out there and go, man, I really want to work on my striking game. What tape should I put on? I wouldn't put on Khabib's tape. I don't know if that's going to work for a lot of you guys out there. Just really strange stuff. The way he throws it, because he doesn't extend, he doesn't turn over on his fist the way boxers like to throw their punches. But he is knocking guys down with what he does. The thing that would scare me if I'm going for Khabib in this fight is Ferguson is just an incredible counter striker. And I think if you're going to talk about a guy that's going to swarm Ferguson, man, that's going to play into his wheelhouse. Because Ferguson really does a good job of capitalizing when guys try to do that. Now, granted, usually when guys try to swarm him, it's more of a desperation thing because they haven't been able to break into that range, because he's done such a great job of establishing the distance. Anyways, these are things... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, I agree with you that Ferguson is very good at capitalizing guys that swarm him. I mean, that's kind of like a big part of his game. The fact that he baits when to swarm him, and he capitalizes on their mistakes like that. But Khabib's swarming style, he has perfected in a way that he swarms to get you to the ground, and it has been extremely effective so far. And he hasn't fought, not necessarily someone like Ferguson before, although he did beat RDA, which I guess Ferguson also beat. But
that was a different RDA though. That was before he switched camps. Yeah. RDA improved a lot after that fight.
That is true. But Khabib's entire striking style is built towards dragging that person to the ground where he can really impose his will.
I mean, I don't disagree with you on that. I do see how that might play into Tony's game a little bit. Matt, I'm going to let you talk about Tony's jiu-jitsu here in a bit. It's just another point that I wanted to make. that swarming, Michael Johnson was able to take advantage of that. Now, I just think that once Khabib closed that distance on him, Johnson wasn't nearly the grappler that Khabib was. And then on some things, the way that Khabib took him down, I think that it was Luke Thomas on his Monday morning analyst show, and he kind of broke it down. And the way he takes you down, it's not from his grappling is also kind of unique. It's that Sambo style, so it's not just like your traditional grab the underhooks like a wrestler, shift the center of balance. He's got that bear strength, and he was able to get that overhook and just overpower Michael Johnson and twist him across his body and take him down. It was really impressive, but Michael Johnson made mistakes once it got to the ground. I don't see Ferguson making those mistakes. Khabib's wheelhouse is getting you that half guard and then just grinding on you, beating you into oblivion. Tony Ferguson, he's really good at avoiding that, getting you into his guard. And Ferguson, it's not just the fact that he can throw up those submissions. He uses his close guard offensively. He throws strikes from it. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit, Matt?
He's rad. I think he's a brown belt. And he looks, most of the time you see him using it offensively from him choking people out because he's good and naturally wins a lot of fights. But yeah, he's this is one of the ways that it'll be helpful for him is because if he does end up on ground, he's good at stifling people, like really closing off that space, pinching people in with like underhooks, and then getting back to his feet. He has pretty flexible hips, actually, in order to just stand up, which sounds like it would be easy, but not really if a bear wrestler is on top of you. And
yeah.
like you were saying, I noticed a lot of Michael Johnson made a few mistakes, but like some of the stuff is just Khabib is just that good. Like Dave was saying, like you see very tiny movements about like where he can move wrist control and move something, and that allows him to ground and pound. Hopefully Tony will be able to keep range, like manage his distance with his overhook game out of the close guard in order to stop that. But it's hard to say because nobody's ever done that against Khabib before. But the other thing is Tony Ferguson. You were talking about Granby rolling, and he could. I actually think that would be probable to see him to invert or Granby roll to get out of side control or out of a half guard from Khabib on top of him. The other part is just from half standing, not. The other part of his jiu-jitsu, this is going to be important here, is the half standing and what we would describe as scrambles. Really, there's no such thing as a scramble in grappling. There's just people that have never been in that position before. But Dave mentioned Khabib is ridiculously good at all these throws that they're like Sambo and judo type throws and trips that you don't really see very often. Khabib could be in a really inferior position, or what you would think is an inferior position, and say sacrifice throw by falling backwards, and use his underhook to just flip the hips and take somebody down. He did that against Michael Johnson, and it's that kind of like strategy, thinking ahead, that Tony Ferguson is going to need to figure out exactly ahead of time. Like, oh, all right, he's going to start here, trying to keep distance. I think for Ferguson, the best bet is to try to stay on his feet and to use his defensive grappling that way and to try to get back up rather than to strike back. But given if he does damage him on the feet and then he gets taken down anyway, there is a possibility that El Cucuy could just, wrap him up in his closed guard and throw elbows for a while and at least slow down Khabib.
he just has a really, really deadly close guard game. And the other thing, and I guess maybe I don't want to sell Michael Johnson short, and it wasn't so much that he was making blatant mistakes, but just like little things like getting your hand pinned in half guard and allowing Khabib to go to side control, uses knee to pin your hand like that. Those aren't things that Tony is going to allow Khabib to do to him. This, as great as Khabib is at grappling, you know, Tony is no slouch. And I guess if I haven't said it already, I think that's what's going to have me leaning towards Tony just a little bit here. Because, you know, we're talking about a 2-time All-American wrestler himself. He's got a BJJ purple belt. He's working with those guys over at 10th Planet. His grappling is legit. His takedown defense is legit. And you kind of know what Khabib is going to want to do. What David said. So if we know that, I'll tell you what, Tony Ferguson knows that too. And he's game planned it. And he knows how to counter strike the way you need to be able to not only hurt Khabib on the way in, keep him at distance, but also avoid any takedown attempts. And anytime he tries to attempt a takedown, he's going to be really good at either trying to find an advantageous position or pushing away and getting back into that stand-up. And at stand-up, you know, it's not going to be the same advantage the way grappling is in favor of Khabib, but Ferguson's stand-up is going to be quite a bit better than Khabib's. And you throw that in with his substantial reach advantage and his ability to fight long, I could see Tony being really smart, knowing exactly who was in front of him and where not to be in this fight. I see him pulling out the decision here. I know I already said who I think, or who you guys think you're going to win, but how do you think they're going to do it? David, I'm going to start with you.
All right, and as you all know, I'm picking Khabib in this fight, and I'm going with a third round stoppage TKO ground and pound.
All right, Matt.
I am also going third round stoppage ground and pound, but for Ferguson.
I think this is going all the way. I think this is going to be the fight of the night, and I think this is going to be one of those fights where afterwards they're going to both raise each other's hands. How about that? How about that for my prediction? They're gonna gain each other's respect through the crucible of combat.
Oh.
But Ferguson, I see Tony Ferguson being triumphant here. And just one quick note that on their call-in, media call-in, I really like the way Tony handled himself. I don't know. I was talking with you guys earlier. I think something may just get lost in translation with Khabib. He seems to be very sensitive about some things, and then other times he seems like very light and kind of goofy almost. So I just don't really know what's the real him. We're about to talk about a guy in a second who seems to do that on a daily basis almost, Mr. Tyrone Woodley. We'll get to that in a little bit. Can I take a picture of that, Matt? And that's going to be our wallpaper for this. But when Khabib kind of pressured him about the, you just wanted the money, and I offered you my money, and Tony was like, I don't want your money, and stuff like that. And I thought, he said this, it's not about the money. What about, it's about fairness. It's about paying people what they deserve. I thought he handled that really well, and it just speaks to the level of maturity of a Tony Ferguson. I just really like the guy. Beyond the fact that I think that he's going to win this fight, and I do think it's going to be a close fight, I just really like him. I think that he's a great ambassador for the sport, and I think he'd make an incredible champion. And I also think that the build-up between Tony and Conor, it's already built in. When those guys fight, that'll be a hell of a fight. So I think he's going to win, but I'm also going to be rooting for him in this fight. So we're going to move on for the other main event. Now this one is for the actual belt. It's not just an interim belt. Finally, a legit belt. Those are more rare, right? When you actually get to fight for a real belt. We got Tyrone, the chosen one, Woodley, versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Stephen, who is so wonderful. I don't even know if anybody calls him Stephen. He's always referred to as Wonderboy. They call him Wonderboy Thompson. Incredible striker. You guys are both going with Thompson for this one. We've broken down this guy's game here, Broest Bros. quite a few times. I'm a huge fan of Stephen Thompson's game. His just very unique style, his side-on stance, his ability to get off those side kicks just quickly, both offensively and defensively, as ways to get out of the pocket, ways to initiate combinations. A very unique striker, one of the best that the UFC has to offer. Matt, I'm going to start with you here. You're picking Stephen Thompson. What does he need to do differently this time around? Because I will say I watched that last fight, and that was probably the most lopsided draw I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was a lopsided draw. By the rules, I think it was a draw. By terms of damage, Woodley definitely did more damage. Woodley, like you said, Woodley really showed. We thought, there's a couple issues that he would have in terms of matching up against Thompson, and he proved that he was able to handle all of those. And his entries into the pocket without taking damage was insane. I looked up his thing. He has a ridiculously high significant strike defense. Like 18 or 19 out of 20 significant strikes thrown at him get blocked. And you're like, damn, he doesn't really get hit that much. I think both fighters are going to this fight's going to play out a lot differently than the last one. Tyron was probably going to think, yeah, man, I can push inside a little more using the same strategy that he had last time, but also use his wrestling a little bit more, because he really, when he had him on the ground, he was in complete control. And Thompson couldn't really, he was getting ground and pounded, and he couldn't really get up, and he was doing some basic defense, but he wasn't really any position to escape or to get up. And I see Thompson seeing that, and from his mind saying, one, he needs to throw more volume, because there wasn't that many strikes thrown in that whole fight. There's like 15 or 20 per round. And we didn't really get to see a lot of what we thought was going to see a lot of his lead sidekick to keep the distance. Not really sure. I think it was based on Tyron's stance and him not throwing.
I think it was based, if I may just interject real quick, I think it was based on the fact that I think going in, Thompson thought that Tyron would bully him a little bit and press the action and go for those takedowns, and Woodley was actually kind of backing up. He was doing exactly what we thought Woodley shouldn't do, but it was part of his game plan, and it worked. And it's hard to throw those side kicks going. It's better as a countermeasure to create that distance. Going forward, it's kind of tough because you got to judge that, and then you have a guy that's a high level grappler. Then you have to think about the takedown. So I think that's why he didn't throw it as much. You think that he needs to throw it more in this fight?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it depends on how his opponent's working, but I don't think the low volume worked out for him. I think he needs to push the pace, and also it just gives more opportunity for Tyron to make a mistake. Like, we saw that Tyron was very good from distance, avoiding those high kicks and checking them. He looked very good, but there weren't that many. And depending on how he enters and exits or moves in at an angle, that could set up different high kicks, which I think that's one of his best weapons. And depending on how Tyron works it, he might go into the fight doing exactly what he did last time, or he might go in looking to bully him a little more and look for the takedown, and that might open up opportunities for Thompson to have high kicks. For me, this was a pick'em fight, and I expect Thompson to look a little bit more to make the more drastic changes this time, but I think the fight will play out differently. I see it a lot like the two Rory McDonald and Robbie Lawler fights, like brutally violent, but they were very different. And then the second one ended by TKO, and I think this one's going to end by TKO. And I flipped a coin, and I chose Thompson.
also because I like Thompson, and nobody likes you, other guy. Racist.
Yeah, I mean, we're here at Broest Bros. This is one of the Broest Bros We Know. This guy drives kids in the school bus to karate class. I mean, this is good guy Wonderboy. You talk about one of those guys that would represent the UFC well as a champion. That you would find probably no better example as a great ambassador of the sport than a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, for crying out loud, he's such a nice guy. And like I said, we've already talked about his game. I will say this: that if you go back and you watch that fight, I don't know what Stephen Thompson can take from it. There was very little that he did that could work. And you said that, okay, he needs to throw more volume. I don't. The reason why he didn't throw the volume was because Woodley did a good job of hiding his takedown attempts and throwing really good, crisp combinations, mixing up headshots with leg kicks, heavy, strong leg kicks. And that really threw off his rhythm. And it's really hard for Thompson to stand that, like, side-on stance, just leaves that leg exposed. And Woodley was incorporating those leg kicks really well. And the thing is, not only does he have to think about that offense, but as soon as he sets up top, he knows that he's going to be susceptible to the takedown. And Woodley has a mean, double leg. So there's just a lot of stuff for Thompson to look at. And man, I just don't know what he could look at from that video and go, oh yeah, this was working for me, and I'll just do a little bit more of this. It's just like from the ground up, he's going to have to fix some stuff for him to make the improvements necessary to be able to challenge the champion. Tyron Woodley had 2 question marks for me going into the last fight, and that's the reason why I picked against him, and I picked for Stephen Thompson. The first one was his gas tank. This was a guy that kind of ebbs and flows, starts off strong, ends weak. Stephen Thompson, the exact opposite, starts out a little slow, ends strong. And I'm like, you give me that combination in a fight, give me the guy that's going to finish strong, especially once this thing goes into the championship rounds. Guys, this thing went the distance. Woodley didn't really slow down. There were times in the 5th round where he was still throwing with a lot of power and was still threatening the takedowns. So he answered that question for me definitively, the cardio issue. Can a guy like a built guy like Tyron Woodley, can he keep up that output for 5 rounds? The answer is yes, he can. And then the other thing was, I didn't like the way that he kind of picked his shots. He went with either a leg kick or he would throw or he would use his boxing, but he never really threw them together. He threw them together. And then one last point. He doesn't like to really engage in any grappling, and when he does, it's more of to either go for a takedown or to break away. And you actually saw him throwing some uppercuts, being offensive there. And that was another thing that in the last fight when we broke it down, I thought was key for Stephen Thompson when he's in those grappling exchanges. He's really good at framing, hitting you with elbows and strikes on the way out. I just saw that as a recipe for disaster for Tyron Woodley. Woodley was winning some of those exchanges. So across the board, I just see that as far as the last fight is concerned, Woodley answered a lot of questions for me, and I don't know going into this fight what Thompson could take away from that last fight. For Woodley, I don't know if you've seen everything from him yet. He didn't really have to let everything out of the bag, so to speak. But one of the things that he did take away from Thompson, or I don't think Thompson was anticipating, and we just talked about that earlier, Thompson likes to fight against the cage a little bit. It's kind of weird. We used to talk about, like, good guys don't fight against the cage, but you saw him do it in that Hendricks fight against the wrestlers. He kind of likes to use it, kind of bounces off of it, moves off of an angle, and that way you can't put him on his back if you start pressing forward. You catch his leg or something like that. He can use the cage to rebalance himself. Really good at framing, using his elbows, throw some punches, get his balance back, move back into striking range, and then all of a sudden you're against the cage and he can tee off. Woodley was kind of giving him the cage, and I guess like what Woodley was saying was, but that gives me the entire cage to push forward. It's a different way of looking at it, I suppose. But it was definitely something that made Thompson uncomfortable in that fight. And it seemed like he really couldn't put the pressure on Woodley once he had him against the cage. But when Woodley started going for those takedown attempts, it was a lot for Thompson to think about. It was really hard for him to be offensive and stop the takedowns. It's going to be a lot for him to put together if Thompson wants to bring this one out. David, we haven't gotten to you yet. You are also going with Wonderboy here. What do you think? What are the things that Wonderboy is going to have to bring, and why do you like him in this rematch?
So, I think one of the main reasons I like Wonderboy in this rematch. Well, first of all, Matt mentioned it already. Honestly, this is a pick 'em fight. The last fight ended in a majority draw. But since then, Wonderboy has focused a lot on getting stronger. He said recently that he put on 8 pounds of muscle since that last fight, which I guess could be good or bad. 8 pounds of muscle means he has to cut more to get down to 170 pounds, but it also means he's a stronger guy now. In the last fight, I do agree that Woodley landed the harder shots, but I think that Wonderboy learned a lot from that last fight. He's no longer Wonderboy. He's Wonder Man.
You're gonna be wondering, man, how did he lose that fight so quickly? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Honestly, for me, I feel like the reason I'm picking Wonderboy in this fight is nothing necessarily technical at all. I just think that he's in Woodley's head at this point. Woodley has been a different person, at least publicly, since his fight with Thompson back at 205, and there's something there. There's something mental going on there, and I think that Wonderboy's in his head, and Wonderboy will be able to land the shots that he needs to land in order to get this victory.
Look, we're talking about 2 of the best in the division, 2 of the best in the UFC. So definitely no disrespect for Wonderboy at all. But that being said, I don't think he is in Woodley's head. I think Woodley just has a bad PR guy. And, he wanted to bring up some issues. He thought he could make light of some issues with his new platform, and he chose his words. For a guy that's the chosen one, he chosen his words poorly. I get sort of where he's at. It's just that the whininess is not endearing to the fans. Man, I've heard him in his interviews before. The guy's pretty chill, and hearing him, especially in that Colin Media interview, he was laughing. He was like, "Man, you guys are kind of twisting my words." He kind of laughed about stuff, and there's a weird sort of nervous tension that you always have between fighters, especially because ESPN doesn't know how to set those things up, and they have the guys sit next to each other, which is like the most awkward thing. I remember when they had Weidman sit next to Rockhold for an interview, and I was like, guys, you don't know how fighting works, right? You put them across, have them face each other, like as a face-off in this interview. It's really awkward. So you put the 2 guys together, and it's going to be awkward because you're going to be asking them questions about, and their job is to hurt the other guy. And the way the pay works in the UFC, also take home some of that guy's paycheck, 50% to be precise. So there's a lot at stake. So some of those interviews, I think they're going to come off kind of weird. No one's going to come off like the eternal nice guy like Wonderboy, which is why he's such a fan favorite. But I don't think Woodley is rattled. If I were his coaches, I'd look at that tape and I'd say, man, like, how can you not be confident? Even when Stephen Thompson started trying to put together like a couple combinations, it just didn't look like any of them were hurting. And Woodley was doing a really good job of just kind of rolling with it. I was really impressed by Woodley's striking defense and his ability to immediately counter and throw in those other strikes. Woodley is not the kind of fighter that's going to, and this is the thing. This is one of the things he's made improvement on. He's never been like a extremely high output guy. He's more like, he was always like a blitz guy, but he's not going to really like make those mistakes. He's not going to kind of chase the knockdown or whatever. I think he's going to be really comfortable kind of sitting back, doing his game plan. So it will be up to Stephen Thompson to solve the Woodley riddle. I think going into the first fight, it was up to Woodley to solve the Thompson riddle. I just really like this one for the champion, especially looking at that last fight. You want to talk about like how Khabib and Ferguson, as soon as Khabib gets his hands on Ferguson, this is a different ballgame. It's the same way here in this one. You guys have any final thoughts?
Making fun of questioning someone's cardio is racist.
Okay. David?
So I do believe that the Woodley Wonderboy fight is probably my favorite for fight of the night. I know that Ferguson Khabib also has some some momentum in that category, and I also believe that the Venata Tamer fight has some momentum in that category. But I think that Woodley versus Thompson could be a great 5-round just war, which should be great. It means it's a great card when you have 3 fights that you could argue that are fight of the night.
For sure. And if I am just, I guess, takeaways for me, if I'm from the Thompson camp, and you're looking at for positives from that fight, Woodley gave him just about everything that he had there on the ground. Couldn't quite get the finish. So that proves something in yourself that when you can survive something like that. Ferguson was able to come back from something like that and win. Not everyone is like a Ferguson, but man, when I was watching that fight, I really thought that Woodley had it. I thought Thompson was done. Frankly, if that fight would have been called while he was going for a ground and pound, he eventually went for the choke and couldn't quite secure it. But when he was ground and pounded him, man, there were a couple of times that I'm like, this might be called any second. So
yeah.
And then if that would have happened, man, this fight might not be happening right now. We could be, I don't know, breaking down Woodley Maia.
Damian Maia.
Yeah. Which is he's cheeky about Maia, isn't he? He talks about all the other guys, and then like the one guy where if he takes him to the ground, he's gonna have his head taken off. He's like, I mean, that's not a big name fight.
So speaking of Maia, Maia versus Masvidal was rumored to be the main event for the Nashville card. It is now officially on the UFC 211 card in Dallas, Texas, along with the heavyweight championship fight and Joanna Champion versus Jessica Andrade. Pretty stacked card there in 211 in Dallas.
Yeah, she's just coming off a very impressive victory, so probably one of the more active fighters in that female division. But Joanna is running that show down there. I don't really know. I don't know if Andrade has anything for her. I'm sure but she's a talented girl and she's game, so she'll bring it. But Joanna's just running through that division. She's just running through that division. I would like to see her and Shevchenko run it back. I don't know where that fight would take place. I don't know if Shevchenko could make 115, but that's a fight I would like to see again. It would be a little unfair to make the champion have to go up to 135. That's such a huge jump. Maybe they can meet at 125. I don't know.
Catch weight.
But then you also have the 2 big heavyweight fights on there. Of course, Stipe Miocic will be defending his belt. Yeah, the winner of the Verdum Rothwell fight, probably that's the contender fight. So that's good stuff. Something to look forward to there. Something to look forward to now this weekend. UFC 209.
Pay-per-view, 10 p.m. Eastern. The undercard starts at 8 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. And the Fight Pass early prelims start at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on, obviously, UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah, and if you turn on those early fights, you get to see a guy by the name of Sikath. He also goes by the Asian Sensation, so just for that alone, it's worth tuning in. And man, these are some awesome fights. Particularly these co-main event fights. That Nurmagomedov Ferguson fight, I just keep going back and forth on it, guys. That is such a razor thin fight. Those are 2 of the best in the UFC, 2 of the most talented guys in the UFC. One last question for you guys before I let you go. It is a who wore it best. Wing Tats, Bendo, Holloway, Ferguson. Who wore it best? Matt, I'll start with you.
Bendo, because he looked really good upside down when he was getting suplexed.
I feel like Bendo's a good pick for that one, but honestly, I'm going Pettis. I'm going Pettis in this one. The wings look good on Pettis. I feel like he had the right body type for the tattoo.
That wasn't even a guy. That wasn't even a guy.
He's a peacock. You gotta let him fly.
Yeah.
Wait. Sorry. That was my bad. Pettis does not have the wing tattoos. He has Showtime on his back.
Yeah.
My bad. Never mind. I'm agreeing with Bendo. I feel like Bendo had the best wing tats.
Yeah, his wing tats are pretty sweet. Guys, any final thoughts? David, I'll start with you.
Final thoughts. Follow me on Twitter, David L. Bridges, at David L. Bridges. And I also have an article in the works for BroestBros.com about how beer does not negate your gains in the gym. I just had a conversation with someone in the gym last week, and this one guy was asking about the diet, and I was like, dude, it's fine. Beer. You drink beer every now and then, you're good to go. And every now and then, I mean by like,
all the time.
At the very least.
Once a day.
You're good to go.
No.
So yeah, look for my article on that issue.
Carbo loading, right? At its best.
All about carbo loading.
Yeah, the liquid diet. Yeah, you guys have to check it out. If you guys haven't read it already, go over to broesbros.com right now. Drinking Bro Part 1. So David's already started this series, so he's just gonna continue that. And you should follow him on Twitter. It's a great follow. I follow him on Twitter. It's really funny. I like basically all of his stuff, as long as he tags me.
Hook a brother up with a retweet right quick.
Yeah. Also, gotta follow Matt Two Stripe Alexander at Bro Baz Guy, BROBAZGUY. He's not as funny as David, but he's very.
That's because I haven't.
That's because I don't have a face like David. Yeah.
Oh.
All right, guys, we got to give it up to Matt Two Stripe real quick for this is the first one in 2017, isn't it?
First one of 2017. Let's
first
make
one
it
for the new year. The latest, Rattling the Cage. Matt, take it away, bro.
All right. Greg Hardy, former NFL defensive end, is making his transition to MMA. Now I'm nobody, he said. Aw, you're not nobody. You're that domestic abuser with a bunch of illegally owned weapons that even the Cowboys wouldn't keep. According to his father, Khabib Nurmagomedov will likely retire in a year and a half. That means he's only got 3 or 4 fights left to pull out of. Rory McDonald is preparing for his next fight and is ready to show people who he really is. His words. That's right. Bellator is now a reality TV show about psychopaths. Dana White called Tyron Woodley a drama queen, and Woodley responded by saying Dana is the biggest drama queen. I guess it was a case of the pot calling the kettle. Oh, wait, that's racist. Derek Lewis said of a possible matchup with Francis Ngannou that America likes to see black-on-black crime. This statement is inaccurate. We love black-on-black crime. Sanctioned fights let us enjoy it without the feelings of guilt, and his last fight showed us that black-on-brown crime is just as popular. Damn, that's all I got.
All right. That was excellent, Matt. If you like this, give us a thumbs up. And for all things Broest Bros, subscribe. And until next time, we are the Broest Bros You Know.
You know. Wait. You are the Broest Bros You Know.